Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mike Elko, the Texas A&M Aggies go out and land what I think is early one of the more fascinating recruits in this 2026 class. Four-star right now defensive lineman Jermaine Kinsler committing to Texas A&M. There are a couple of things that jump out. One, Texas A&M's recruiting nationally, and they did a really good job in the state of Texas in that 2025 class. You look at Texas A&M right now in 2026, they got 9 commitments, only one from the state of Texas. They're building a very good class in 2026, and they haven't even dug their teeth into the state of Texas just yet. You know that's going to be coming in the summer. Jermaine Kinsler, I see offensive tackle. He's 6'7", 260. I think he's planning on playing defensive line right now. And look, Mike Elko, a lot smarter than me. He's going to know what to do with Jermaine Kinsler. When I look at the film and I see that frame, that length, with that kind of athleticism, I'm putting 30 pounds on him and making him an offensive tackle because I think he could be an elite offensive tackle. Honestly, it reminds you a little bit of Keati Armstrong, just a little bit bigger. A lot of different things that a guy like Jermaine Kinsler can do for Texas A&M. I am fascinated to see what he ends up doing once he gets to College Station. Mike Elko is going to do this. We talked about it ever since he got to Texas A&M. We're going to bet on traits. And you look at Jermaine Kinsler, look, I don't know what position he's going to play right now. Could play tight end, could play offensive tackle, could play on the defensive line. We're going to bet on 6'7" athletes every single day of the week. That's exactly what Mike Elko is doing here. Excited to get into the film of Jermaine Kinsler. Would love to hear from the Texas A&M fans. Like when you watch this kid play, you look at the traits. Where do you want to see him play for this Texas A&M program? I think there's spots he could slot in at. Would love to hear from you guys. Appreciate y'all. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this one, and let's start with just the raw athlete here. This is why I'd like to see him give tackle a shot. 6'7", with all the length in the world. It's really hard to find these kind of bodies that move like Jermaine Kinsler is. And you look at one of the most important positions outside the quarterback spot in all of the sport of football, it is offensive tackle. If you have the ability to get a guy like Jermaine Kinsler on your roster, to me, you want to give him a shot at playing tackle and just see what it looks like. Because I look at it and say he's got all the specs that you want to play offensive tackle. I believe he's a little bit bigger than 260 pounds right now as well, closer to 275. With the 6'7" frame, you could get him up to 310 pounds very, very easily, while also maintaining the elite athleticism Jermaine Kinsler has. This is not me getting up here and saying he'd be a bad tight end or be a bad defensive lineman. The reason I look at him and say tackle is at 6'7", it's going to be hard to play with elite leverage on the inside. And I think that's, if he's going to play defensive line, he's probably going to play in the middle, 3-tech, maybe even nose. You see him come up with high pads sometimes, which is just natural for a guy that is 6'7". I think he could be a very good defensive lineman as you put a little sand in the pants and put a little bit more weight on him. But I look at the potential he might have at offensive tackle and say, know who he reminds you of is Darnell Washington, who played for Georgia a couple of years ago. I said the same thing with Darnell coming out. I looked at him and said, all right, he could be very good at whatever position he decides. Decided to play tight end, was quite good for Georgia. But, man, I thought he could have been an All-American caliber tackle. I look at Jermaine Kinsler, and I kind of find myself saying the same thing. And right now he's in the middle of his junior year. And so what does his body look like going into his senior year? What position does he play going into his senior year? A lot of these things can change with guys this early on in the process. We'll kind of see where it plays out. The other thing, we talked about betting on traits, which Mike Elko will continue to do as long as he's at Texas A&M. The other thing is prioritizing the line of scrimmage. To me, this kid's going to play line of scrimmage, whether it's on the offensive line, whether it's on the defensive line. Mike Elko is hammering it on the recruiting trail. You go back to 2025, it was, I believe, 12 line of scrimmage players. You look at an early look at 2026, you have 9 commitments, 4 of them are line of scrimmage. I mean, we're basically saying half our class going to be line of scrimmage guys, which I love because, look, you can go out and get other players in the transfer portal at other positions. You really can't find that many elite line of scrimmage players in the portal. Make sure you're getting these guys at the portal at the high school ranks. You can fill in the rest of your roster if you want through the transfer portal. Love what Mike Elko is doing from a roster composition standpoint. Now, I want to get into Jermaine Kinsler. Again, he's such a fascinating prospect. You just don't see many guys that look like Jermaine Kinsler lining up as an inline tight end right now. You see how smooth he is in space. Again, I talk about red zone targets in the red zone at tight end. Like, he certainly can be that guy. Would be an elite inline blocking tight end as well. On the defensive line, what you love the most is his athleticism when it comes to moving laterally, which a lot of big bodies struggle with. You look at Jermaine Kinsler, he's got no issue running the line of scrimmage and going out and making plays in space. Again, that's 6'7", 270. And we're grabbing the edge on running backs. And that to me is what you love the most. Now, you see at times, again, this is a very, very athletic play too. And this is why I like him at tackle. I mean, look at his feet. Look how light he is. I mean, that is so light on his feet for that size. It screams tackle to me. Now, this is why I kind of like tackle over defensive line. When you look at this play right here, it just kind of comes with high pads. Doesn't necessarily have that. And it just might come with, further development as he puts a little bit more weight on and fills out that 6'7" frame. But he kind of comes up high sometimes and doesn't necessarily really devastate offensive linemen with the power. But again, he gets off blocks and goes and makes plays. He'll be very, very good at defensive line, I think. But I look at it and say, man, he has all the specs that you want to play offensive tackle too. The defensive line film is very, very good though. Yeah, I'm not trying. This is you talk about inline tight end right here. This is why you love it. I just think he can really get it done in the blocking department. I think he can be a very good pass protector. I can't wait to see what the development looks like for this kid. And again, it's really early. He's probably set maybe 16, 17 years old going into his back half of his junior year. That body's going to continue to change. He's not going to be on campus for Texas A&M for another, let's say, almost 24 months at this point. But that's actually not true. 12 months, 12 to 18 months, depending on if he early enrolls or not. The body's going to look different. He's still a young kid that's developing. I think there's a really good chance for him to play offensive tackle. That's where I would like to see him get a shot. But again, I'm going to trust Mike Elko. Get him into and at the end of the day, would I like to see him play tackle? Yeah, of course. But you get these kids into your program. You can figure out the rest later because, 6'7", 275 with this kind of athleticism, it ain't going to grow on trees. So when you have the opportunity to lock a guy like Jermaine Kinsler up, do so in a big way. We'll see how it looks. But again, Mike Elko betting on traits, recruiting the line of scrimmage at the high school ranks. Nothing new for what's going on in College Station. And I guess what I'll say is this will pay off, in my opinion, over the next couple of years. Prioritizing the line of scrimmage. We know wins USCC championships. If you want to have good line of scrimmage play, you got to get these kids out of the high school ranks. That is exactly what Mike Elko is doing. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.